Hey guys, it's Wifitoaster, and today I just want to do a quick build showcase for you guys. I know I haven't really been making too many videos recently. That's mostly because I've had finals, but they're all over now, so yay! I get to make more videos. And I also really wanted to start making more build showcase videos because, like, my favorite thing to do in Dark Souls is just like mess around with the stats and make builds and all that good stuff. So I figured I'd start doing a little bit more of that. But anyway, for these like build showcase videos, I think I'm gonna go to like a format where I do like a brief overview of the build, then I go through the stats and the equipment, and then just like kind of a strategy for how I use the build and stuff. And that'll be pretty much it until I decide to change my mind and change the format, because that might happen too. But anyway, let's just go right into the stats and like the description of it. Basically, this build is a random invasions build. It focuses mainly around buffing the Honorary Straight Sword to get like crazy amounts of like DPS damage. So this build is pretty much a luck faith build to maximize that damage output and to get into an invasion and try to like burst down a host before he can run off and heal too quickly. That's the main idea. But anyway, let me go right into it as far as the stats goes. So, starting off, we've got 39 Vigor. That gives you roughly 1200 HP. And then with the bonus health items and stuff, you'll get an extra like 100 HP. So it's like roughly 1300 HP, which is pretty good. Even for a random invasion, you won't get one shot by everything. And it'll be pretty good. Oh, I guess I should start with the fact this is a 120 build, first of all, and it is also Knight starting class. So those are just two things I forgot to mention. As it turns out, Knight starting class is basically like the best starting class for almost everything. Like even Faith builds or Magic builds and stuff like that, unless you're going really deep into Magic or really deep into Faith, which sounds very wrong, and that was a weird sentence. But who cares? Let's just move on. So the next stat is attunement, and this build has 14 attunement so that I can equip two buffs, mainly the lightning blade buff and the what's it called? Deep protection, the deep protection buff. And those are again just to maximize the damage on your weapon. Try to burst down the host before he can run away and heal. That's mainly what you're going for. And the thing is, like, as an invader, you know, sometimes you're going up against 2 or 3 people, and so you really do need that like burst damage just to get the host down before it gets into like a big war of attrition, because otherwise you're gonna lose that fight. You just don't have enough healing to keep up with the host and the phantom, so you really need to get in there, do as much damage as you can, and hopefully burst down the host, which this build tries to do as best as it can. So anyway, moving on to the next stat. That was kind of a weird tangent, but who cares? We've got 25 endurance. This is just my personal preference for endurance. I think it's pretty solid. And since this build pretty much just uses the straight sword, the straight sword doesn't take a lot of endurance, so you don't need like crazy amounts of it. Like, you can still swing the sword like 8 times in a row and still roll away, so that's fine. Moving on to the next stat, we've got vitality, and that's just going to be base 15, because you don't really need it. It's not really a stat you need too much of unless you're going for like wielding a fume ultra great sword or something that has 28 units. So most part I just keep it at base. Next, I have strength of 14. I just upped it by 1 because some weapons require 14 strength, and if I ever wanted to use another weapon, you know, other than the Honorary Straight Sword, which isn't the best idea because this build is really focused around that sword, but you know, you could infuse a weapon with like a hollowing gem or something, and you could use that if you got bored of the Honorary Straight Sword. So I put that at 14 because there are like at least 2 or 3 weapons that have at least a minimum requirement of 14 strength. The next stat, Dex, I up to 13, mainly because if you put on a Hunter's Ring with the 13 Dex, you go up to 18 Dex, which is enough to wield the Warden's Twin Blades, which are very good on a luck focus build because they have really high amounts of bleed. So you can actually use that weapon as an alternative with the Hunter's Ring and try to bleed people out if that's what you want to do. But I also just had 2 extra stats left over after I did everything else, so I figured I'd just put them into Strength and Dex so that I have a little extra variety if I ever wanted it. Next is Intelligence. I just have it at base 9 because you don't really need it for this build. Finally, we've got 40 Faith. That's because the buffs do scale with your Faith scaling. So the more Faith you have, the more damage your buffs do. And again, this buff, that doesn't make any sense. This build is focused around the buffs from the miracles and stuff. And then finally, we've got Luck at 40, and that's because the primary weapon on this build is the Honorary Straight Sword. So for those of you guys who don't know, the Honorary Straight Sword does scale off of Luck, and then it scales off of like a little bit of Dex and a little bit of Faith. So the 40 Faith also does help with the Honorary Straight Sword, but just a little bit, maybe like 20 AR, I think. It's not that big for 40 levels, but hey, it's there. So, you know, whatever. So next we've got the equipment. I figured I'll just go right into that. So for the armor, it doesn't really matter. You can do whatever armor you want in this game pretty much. There are armors with higher defenses, but it doesn't matter that much which armor you have. As long as you have 4 pieces of armor, you're good to go. So I just pick whatever armor I think looks cool, and yeah, that's what I do. Yeah. God damn it. Then I've got the shield. There's nothing really special about the shield I'm using. I like target shield because it lets you parry better. And getting a parry and a riposte is really helpful against, 2v1s or 3v1s. You can just take someone out with a good riposte with a Hornet Ring, which this build does use a Hornet Ring. So that's why I like the buckler. But if you prefer to go for a more block-centered thing, there's no problem with using medium shield or anything like that. I would recommend that you use a blessed shield, whichever one you use, because it's very helpful for invasions to heal back up a little bit, so you don't have to use up all your Estus flasks, because sometimes invasions last a really long time, and if you start running low on Estus flasks, that extra healing is really going to make a difference. That, and it also synergizes with the Honorary Straight Sword, which also has a slight regen bonus. Speaking of the Honorary Straight Sword, that's our primary weapon. Yay, segues that are very bad, but that's okay. So this weapon, like I said, primarily uses the Honorary Straight Sword. This weapon's pretty insane, and I kind of got the idea for this build after watching speedruns, because the speedrunners like basically make a luck build and use the Honorary Straight Sword, because at 40 luck, it already has 400 AR, which is insane, because like you've only dumped, at most 40 points, in this case 33 points, into one stat, but it has 400 AR, which is almost like a dark sword on a 40-40 build. It's a little bit less, but it's almost the same AR as a dark sword on like a 40-40 quality build, but you had to spend like 40 less stats to get it. So that's an insane amount of damage for that low of a stat investment. And so that's the main reason I use it, because it's a lot of damage for one stat investment. And then the second reason I use it is because you can buff it. So you can buff it, and that's awesome, because you take that 400 AR, you buff it, and that brings it up to like 600 AR, which is pretty insane for a straight sword, considering how fast they swing. So, and I tested it against like a 40-40 dark sword with like a resin on it, and it was still doing way more damage. So it's a high damage build. It's got a lot of damage on it. It's very, very well optimized, and it's definitely a good build for buffs, just because of how much damage you can do with that low of a stat investment into just one stat, and then you can buff it because you spent all the points that you would have normally spent into like strength and dex into faith instead, and then you buff your weapon, and it's crazy. So yeah, that's the primary, like, I don't know, equipment that I use for the build. Going through the rings, we've got the Ring of Steel Protection. I just like it for the added defense. Since this is kind of an invasions build, you really do need some of that added defense, because really you're going to want to go in, try to ambush the host really quickly and surprise them. And sometimes that means taking damage, and sometimes you're not successful in like ambushing the host and taking them out. So you'll get hit a bunch of times, and the ring helps prevent you from dying immediately so that you can run away and hopefully get another chance to get in on the host. The next ring, I've got the Fat Ring, or the Ring of Favor and Protection, as it is actually called. But we got the Ring of Favor and Protection. This isn't the best ring in Dark Souls 2, but it's still pretty good in the terms of that it does give you like a 9% stamina boost, which is, I think it's like 7 levels worth of stamina. So that's pretty good. And then you get a little extra health and a little extra equipment load, although the equipment load doesn't really matter that much. So it's a pretty solid ring. If you wanted to, you don't really like that ring in particular, you could switch out the Ring of Favor and Protection for the Sun Princess ring. That's a pretty useful ring for random invasions, because you can run off into the level if you need to, and it'll start regenerating health. That with the Blessed Shield and the Honorary Straight Sword, which also gives a regen bonus of like 2 HP per second. It's like 7 HP or something per second. And you can, like, in a minute, you'll get up to like 420 extra health, which is really nice. So that's a good alternative ring. And so yeah, that's good alt for that ring if you don't like any of these rings that are on there currently. The next one is the Prisoner's Chain. I like having those extra 15 levels, although again, the 5 levels in Vit don't matter that much, but you get an extra 5 levels in Vigor and an extra 5 levels in your Endurance, which is pretty nice. So that's good. And then finally, we've got the Hornet Ring. That's like the MVP ring. For random invades, I think it's like almost an absolute must to have the Hornet Ring, just because it's so good when you can get off a parry and just take out a phantom. It's really nice. It just helps you out a lot in the invasion, and it's a really nice edge to have. I think, like, for random invasions, that ring is super great. Yeah, and oh shit. I wrote like backup rings, and I talked about like the Sun Princess ring for like a minute. But yeah, 2 backup rings if you don't like any of the rings that are currently on there. You've got the Sun Princess ring, and you also can do the Lightning Clutch ring if you want a little extra damage on the what's it called? Lightning Blade. Right, I knew that. Sunlight Blade, Lightning Blade, whatever. It'll give you like an extra 25 AR, I think. So if you want that, then you can add that. Although I don't like the Lightning Clutch ring that much, because it does reduce your defenses, and sometimes that can be a little rough as an invader. But anyway, yeah, that's pretty much it for all the equipment I've got on there. So I'll just go through like basically the strategy of this build. I kind of talked about it a little bit as we were going through, but the basic strategy of this build is you want to get in. Sorry for that cut right there. I had to burp really badly, so that's what I did. So the strategy for this build is basically, like I said, it's a random invasions build. I don't think this build is very good for dueling, just because it focuses a lot on the buffs, and the buffs can just go away if someone uses a dual charm on you. And like that's basically where its strength lies, and it's only basically optimized for one weapon, so you can't really mix up your weapon choices at all when you're dueling. So you get a little bit predictable with this, and so it's not the best for duels. For random invasions, it's great, because it doesn't matter whether or not you're predictable. There's going to be so much shit just going on everywhere with enemies and phantoms and stuff that, like, you don't really need to worry about anything too fancy in random invasions. You just got to go in and do damage and go wah 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 and try to dunk the host as quickly as possible. So it doesn't really matter that much if you're predictable. But in a duel, if you start getting predictable, you're gonna get parried, and that's not gonna be good. So so it's not the best dueling build, I think. It would still be strong in a duel because it does do a lot of damage, but you know, I think the quality build is much stronger, especially because of the different weapon choices you get with that build. You know, you can choose a weapon that's strong against straight sword classes and stuff like that. So, you know, that's kind of my opinion on this particular build. But this is a great random invasions build. I've been really having fun, like, going gank hunting and stuff. It's been great. But anyway, that was kind of a weird tangent. But so basically, the strategy of this build is when you get into the host world, this build is so focused on doing like high damage burst DPS. You want to basically wait for a chance where the opponent or one of the phantoms or the host or whatever, they're distracted by an NPC or something, and then you just want to get in there and just like R1 spam your little dick off until, oh my god, I almost hit my Coke bottle out of the way. But you want to like I'm doing the R1 spam, you know, with my arm movement, but you guys can't see that. But you just want to R1 spam your little dick off until like you can do as much damage as you can, and hopefully trap the host into a corner and do enough damage to him before you can run away and heal. And hopefully you can make like one of the phantoms or something like panic attack into you, or you can bait an attack and then you can parry them and get rid of them. So that's basically the strategy. Get in there, do as much damage as you can. If you can't kill the host with your burst damage, get the heck out of there and wait for another opportunity to ambush him. And that's basically the whole strategy. So if I want to condense the strategy into one like sentence, it's just be the most dickish invader that you can, because this is a dickish invader build. Let's be honest. It's like you want to go in there, be a total dick, and just ruin someone's day. That's why you're using this build, and it'll be great. It'll be fun. So yeah, just be like a super dick invader, ambush them, use the enemies. It'll be great. Really, honestly, with the random invasion system in this game, it's really heavily stacked against the invaders. So I really don't feel like, I know some people are going to be like, oh, no one should, you should feel bad because you're using a super optimized build. And I know a lot of people don't think that way. I'm just saying that some people do think that way. But honestly, if you're a random invader, you've got a health debuff, you've got, like 3 people after you potentially, and you've got like potentially getting seated on top of all of that. Fuck being like nice and like, whatever. Just use a super optimized build and just like go to town. And this is especially true when you're going into like the 120 invasions. I just burped again. You just want to go in there with cha-cha-cha. You can't see me, but I'm doing karate chops with cha-cha-cha. And like just go in there, be a total dick, because really you're at an extreme disadvantage. You just shouldn't, like, I don't think you should pull any punches for these random invades. But that was another tangent. That's okay. This video is really long. I'm okay with it, if you're okay with it. But that's pretty much all there is to it. Just go in there, be a dick, karate chops, and that's all you gotta do. Yeah, that's the basic strategy. And just really look, I mean, the subtlety in this build is to look for those opportunities that you can get in those quick hits and potential parry baits. Those are the really important things to do. But anyway, this video is pretty long. I'm okay with it. But I hope you enjoyed this build showcase and everything. Sorry it was long. I'll try to make them shorter. But I kind of wanted to talk about random invasions while doing this video. Sort of, kind of. Okay. Bye. Oh my god. Okay, I can't end the video on that. That doesn't make any sense. Well, anyway. Bye.